listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Nevelle. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. Or at least it doesn't have to be. With the help of experts across industries, Dirk helps you find your passion and career, as well as exposing the unknown parts of every vocation. Let's go deep. Let's find your genius zone right now. Here's Dirk Nevelle.
Hey everybody, this is Dirk Nevelle. Welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have Joleen Larson on with me today. And, for a couple of reasons. Joleen's a close friend of our family. Her daughter and my daughter are best friends. They've got a really good core group of girls, and we just love their family. But, I have not had anybody in Joleen's industry yet, as far as the career of being a nurse. And so I'm really interested because there's so many questions that I have, but, I know you all are tuning in and you're interested to learn a little bit about the lifestyle behind being a nurse. And Joleen's been in the business or in the field a very long time. From what I gather, she's done a lot of different things, and I think she's going to be a great resource. So welcome to the show, Joleen.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. So I'm going to try to stop rambling, and maybe people are tuning in right now because they're interested in what you do. So can you just, in your own words, articulate what it is, like whether it's your title or, you have different responsibilities, but tell the audience what exactly it is you do.
Sure. I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. I received my BSN from Seattle Pacific University. And then I actually have spent my entire career at Overlake Hospital in Bellevue, Washington, where I am working now as a primary charge nurse in the operating room. We have 17 ORs, so essentially, and the charge nurse in perioperative services. So that umbrella is the pre-op, the OR, the PACU, the post anesthesia care unit. I spend most of my time in the pre-op area, and but yeah, I've been 27 years now at Overlake. Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, I'm just listening, and there's all these things going off in my head as far as, so is it normal to be with the same hospital that long? I mean, I've been interviewing people that move in and out of their jobs within like 2 years, and 27 years seems like a lifetime. Is that typical?
Good question. Yes and no. So when I first got into nursing, or when I was really spending some time thinking about it in college, actually, I knew that having a family was very important to me, and wanting to have a real good work-life balance was really important to me. So in starting at Overlake, I have had the opportunity. Well, I started there, right when I graduated from college, and in working there at Overlake, I've had the opportunity to change departments many times, and in some ways that would be equivalent to changing companies and having different roles or different type of reallocations that in the business world people do. But for me, having the flexibility, the work-life balance, the staying within the same organization, I found for me personally was really advantageous for me. To be able to do something different and change roles is, we can certainly get into that a little bit later, but it's quite easy to do. And I have worked in a lot of different areas of nursing, actually within Overlake Hospital.
Yeah, that's okay. That's really, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that, like, I've had these interviews with people where, like, apparel or even a firefighter, and I was blown away by all the options, like the different flavors of the same title. Absolutely. And so can you just, like, again, I'm a dummy here. I don't know much about, I mean, I've been in Overlake many times, whether it's, operations or having our children there or whatever. And I know how powerful it is when you have good medical people around you, especially when there's issues. And so, but I don't really understand the different, like, are there 100 flavors of a nurse? I mean, or are there 15, or like how many, like if someone's wanting to be a nurse and they just think, they're used to going to the doctor and there's always a nurse there or whatever. I mean, how many different options do you have in your career?
Absolutely. I mean, the most wonderful thing about nursing, honestly, is you can write your own ticket. I mean, you can work as a nurse on a cruise ship in a school. You can work at Microsoft as a nurse. You can work in the, all different, arms of a hospital. You can do consulting. There's so many different things that you can do as a nurse. You can do concierge medicine as a nurse. Just triage over the phone, auditing, chart reviews. There's all different types of things based on your interests. And so really there's something for everyone, honestly, underneath, underneath the umbrella of nursing, really. So I tell a lot of young people, especially that, there are so many opportunities. You can do so many different things. For me personally, raising 4 kids, for me, kind of staying put and moving within the hospital worked well for me. But it is so easy to have a real broad experience working as a nurse. There's really, the sky's the limit, really.
So like if you're kind of moving in and out of different roles as a nurse, I think 2 things come up. One is I'm curious, like, does the skill set translate? So like maybe you're a specific nurse here. Does that mean that you can be a great nurse everywhere, or does that require different skills? And then how is it like, is it normal to maybe move in and out of a route or a role every 2-3 years? Or can it be 6 months and you're gone and you're trying something different? Or do hospitals typically want to see you kind of stay put for a while?
Sure. Graduating as a new nurse, having an opportunity to work as a nurse resident is really the very best way to start. A lot of larger, or to start if you're going to be working actually in a hospital. Nurse residents enter a residency program that's typically 12 to 16 weeks. Most large hospitals offer something like that. And it's a fantastic foundational program. From there, you choose an area of discipline, whether it's general medical surgical, if it's oncology, if it's labor and delivery, if it's, cardiology, intensive care, ER, whatever it is that you choose, you then, spin off and have some additional training there. To answer your question about moving and changing, learning, having a different background. For me personally, I've spent a lot of time in orthopedics, spent a lot of time in oncology, spent a lot of time in working in some cardiology as well, and then now in the OR. To switch departments is not a difficult thing to do. They, once you have been a seasoned nurse for a while, typically a minimum of 2 years when you're first starting, you can certainly apply for, internships within the hospital. So you learn some cross training. You can be a labor and delivery nurse, and you can switch over to cardiology if you'd like. There's a 6 to 12 week training, within that department. So how long do people stay? It varies. I mean, really the beauty of nursing in general is that there's so much flexibility, and it's really one of the primary reasons why I chose it as a young person. As a nurse, you can work 8 hours a week. You can work, 60 hours a week, with overtime. You can, you can work, weekends only. You can work night shift. You can work, there's so much variability, which makes it so appealing. To to answer your question, changing departments is an easy thing to do, but people, typically stay somewhere for, I want to say on average 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about, and I apologize if I don't know if you went over this. I don't think you did. So where did you go to college, by the way?
Seattle Pacific University.
Okay. But undergrad, right?
Undergrad.
And then, okay. So walk us through just typically the process to become a nurse. So you go to undergrad, and then I'm guessing there is how many years after that? Or is there?
There is not. If you are looking for a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, so there's a few different options to become a nurse, to become a registered nurse. There are many associates programs, at a community college, actually. Once you've satisfactorily completed your prerequisite program, then you've been accepted into a 2-year nursing program. Okay. A lot of times they have, associate's degree programs where you then can take the NCLEX, the exam then to become a registered nurse. So you have an associate's degree. You can also go the track of a 4-year degree where you again complete the prerequisites and then apply to the program and complete the program within a 4-year degree and have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And then at that point in time, you can take the same exam, the NCLEX, which the associate's degree student took, and receive and then become licensed as a registered nurse. From there, advanced practice nursing or advanced practice, there's a lot of different routes you can go. Anesthesia, nurse practitioner, having your master's in nursing. You could then, of course, go on to receive your doctorate. There's a lot of different things. For me, I have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and I have found a lot of opportunity for me personally for advancement within my hospital with my degree of Bachelor of Science. I will say that many hospitals do require a Bachelor of Science in Nursing now as a minimum. I know for our hospital, that is kind of the first criteria as a Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
Okay, so I'm a little slow on this, so apologize. So realistically, you can go 4 years in college, take the test, and then be employed as a nurse.
Yes.
Or you can go like anything, go deeper, go back to school, more specialized. And then, I guess maybe that's an elevated nurse position, not like it's better or worse. Okay. So for people watching, I mean, when you're going to University of Washington or TCU or whatever, do all universities provide this nursing curriculum, or is this something that you have to be really selective on when you go to school? Like, is it any school provided, or is it just only certain? Okay.
Yeah, only certain schools. So you want to be specifically looking for universities that have a nursing program.
Okay, cool. So let's just say, like when I went to UW, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do, but let's just say I'm at UW, I'm cooking along, and junior year comes along, and I think I want to be a nurse, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my school doesn't do it. So then in that scenario, is the only option for them to leave the college and go to a different school? Like, what would you suggest if one of your daughters was like somewhere that didn't offer it, and then halfway through said, Mom, I think I want to be a nurse?
Well, you have a couple options. I mean, yes. I mean, if you want to be a nurse and you're at a university that doesn't have a nursing program, you can complete your prerequisites at the university you're currently at, and then you can transfer, apply to a nursing program at a different school. Or you can just transfer, but and then get your do your prerequisites there. Or you can complete your bachelor's degree, which ironically is something that my daughter's doing. And then you can apply to something called a post-bac accelerated nursing program. So what that is that that's a second degree. So it's somebody who's completed a bachelor's degree. and
Yeah.
then enrolls in a second degree accelerated program, which then becomes a 16-month program to then receive a Bachelor of Science of Nursing.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
helpful. There's a lot of ways to get to the finish line, right? Just different routes.
There's
So
a lot of ways. Mhm.
so I had a friend that I used to work with. She was a really good agent, realtor, and she decided to become a nurse. So like, let's just say you're 45 and you want to become a nurse. Is that accelerated 16th month program probably the route that most people would participate in?
It is if you have already received a bachelor's degree,
Okay. Got
period.
it.
So
Okay.
it could be a bachelor's degree in psychology.
Okay.
But you will then have had to have completed the prerequisites. But yes, if you're going back to school when you're 40 plus, I would definitely recommend an accelerated nursing program as a second degree.
Okay, this is interesting. So let's just say, again, I'm just really, this is maybe boring information for you, but I think it's really valuable if like you're a young adult or you're in school or high school even, and you're like, I think this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So let's just say you take the test, you pass, like you come out of 4-year school and you have all the curriculum needs, and now you get hired by Overlake. Is there, like you said, is there like an initiation period, like a year or 2-year period, or are you just fully on, you are a nurse, congratulations, there you go?
Yeah. So once you pass your NCLEX, and you're then applying for jobs, I would strongly recommend applying to an actual residency program in smaller hospitals, or maybe working in a nursing home or something a little bit different. You may not necessarily need to have a residency program. And then, of course, if you're doing something like you're working for Microsoft as a employee health nurse, or working at the Pro Club, working with maybe working at a spa, or, some sort of all different types. There's so many different parts of nursing. But if you're wanting to work in a hospital, then yes, you need to pass your NCLEX exam. I would definitely, you really want a nurse residency program so that you have really great hands-on training instead of just hitting the ground running. So, yeah.
Yeah, that helps. So then what about, like, what's your advice? I mean, we can even use your daughter, for example, but let's just say someone's wanting to get into nursing, and like, there's so many disciplines or different areas of nursing. Is there a process that people go through to try to like clue in or get clear on, I think I would like to be, in the ER or where people are having babies or whatever? Like, is there a process to help people identify which environment that is, most conducive to them, like what aligns with their values?
Sure. Well, in a hospital, in that nurse residency program, you do have different rotations. So you then are rotated through labor and delivery, and the intensive care and the ER. And so and then kind of towards the end of the residency, you kind of submit like a preference. I will say for young adults, looking to make their career choice, and those who have really kind of focused on the nursing route, I can't stress enough how important it is for those that are in nursing school to actually get a job, a paid job within the hospital. It's so important. Hospitals in general will always want to hire their employees first. And so whether you're working as a nursing assistant or as a health unit coordinator, or some way that you're getting to know the staff, familiar with the process, maybe you have a connection with the manager. When you then graduate your nursing program and pass your NCLEX, and they're hiring for a nurse residency program, you're the one they want to hire because you've made that connection. So whenever I've trained, or I've worked with students that are doing their clinicals, which is something that you have while you're actually in your program, the student nurses that I've worked with, the best ones, I've always pulled them aside and said, promise me you'll get a job your senior year in the hospital, so that you make that connection. And like I said, our hospital, one of the first cuts is the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. With that said, and AA programs are great also. You just may not have as many opportunities for employment with an AA as you would if you had a BSN. But the student nurse that is finishing their BSN program, I always want to encourage them to get a job, to make those connections. But like I said, at our hospital, that first kind of cut line is the BSN. The second is they're looking for their current employees second, and then there's kind of a process and how they kind of weed through those applicants.
Yeah, this is good advice. I mean, a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, some people have access to people, right? Like friends, family that can give them this information. But, there are a lot of people that don't have access to the people or family, friends, or people who love them and giving them good advice. So this is really good. I think these are the things that like, oh God, I wish I knew that, right? That might help people get employed. A little bit ago, so I always get into, like, Joleen, this is the dance that I have with this podcast. It's like, on one hand, I always try to say this so you know where I'm going. Like my dad used to say, just get a job, jobs work. It's not supposed to be fun and blah, blah, blah. So like I got into something without really even thinking about like what I'm good at. Like I got into sales, but like a lot of things that make me unique that, I was born in this world, like things I would leverage on a weekend for 8 hours that I didn't even realize, like, I just love this or that. I didn't think like that when it came to choosing a career. And so I understand, like, you got to take action. You got to get out there. It's like dating. You got to date to know what you like. But I also think paying attention to the uniqueness of who you are is really important. Like, I know just getting to know you're an amazing mom, nurturing, and being a nurse is a no-brainer. I can totally see why that would be a great route for you. Is there any advice you can give to somebody? I mean, it's kind of a deeper question, but like trying to uncover like the uniqueness of the person and trying to maybe merge that with a career where they can leverage their natural passions and skill sets instead of just being like, I'll get a job and see if I like it. So is there any advice that, like, even with your kids, like, if you want your child to do something, my guess is you want your children to do something they love, but what would you say to someone like that's gung-ho on being a nurse? Would you caution them before to think about certain, like, do you like to be of service to people? I mean, what are the things people might be able to do to make sure they're making the right decision if they want to go down this career path?
Well, I think that, there have been days in my career where I have finished my shift and I've walked out of the hospital and you just take a breath of fresh air outside and you say to yourself, there is no way that I could ever possibly describe to someone what I just experienced today. So that is just like an amazing moment where you feel like you have been at the bedside of someone who's dying. You've come in at the right time. You've provided CPR, whatever it is. You've just made a human connection with someone on some level that, as a professional, it's like, I can't imagine another profession that you can connect with the humanity piece apart from nursing.
Yeah, I get that.
And so that's a big deal. I think that you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
And so as a young adult, you certainly you start somewhere. You keep your eyes open. You're meeting new people. One thing kind of leads to the next. You might want to switch departments. You may want to go back and get a little bit more education. pull in, you need to start somewhere. And then, as you are mature and develop and realize you have more interests, you can certainly, spread your wings a little bit or make a transition. The great thing about, nursing is like I said, there are so many different things that you can do. So, as we grow older and recognize, more things about ourselves personally, it's an easy shift. It's an easy switch within nursing or healthcare in general to pursue those, paths for you personally. Mm-hmm.
So this is good. So when you were just looking back, were there signs like that you can put your finger on, like, oh man, I knew that I didn't know I wanted to be a nurse, but I always would take care of people. Mm-hmm. I love to do that. I love to was it always a foregone conclusion that this is what you're doing? Or were there signs of like, oh my God, there was an experience once I was in the hospital and I remember this nurse was like life-changing for me. Like mm-hmm. what propelled you in this direction?
Well, I actually think that, I'm thankful that I had maybe the maturity as a 19 or 20-year-old to recognize, apart from my career, the other things that I really valued personally. When I started in school, I was a business major. And, the more I thought about my personal goals, what my hopes or my visions for my family would be like, I wasn't quite sure that this business track would align with what I was seeking in other ways. I wanted to have a college degree. I wanted to have a profession. I wanted to have a career. But my work-life balance, raising my family, being involved in different things in the community or my church or whatever it was, these things were also of great value to me. So I wanted to choose a profession that would give me the flexibility that I would be provided to be able to have, margin and balance and over the years and, the ebbs and flows really of life. So I actually, after my first year in college, I really realized that, I genuinely deeply care about people and people's well-being. And my mom was a nurse. My grandmother was a nurse. I swore I would never be a nurse. And, but, some things that are innate in you and the way that you care for others, I realized on my own that this was something that I was sure that I would be good at, and knew it would provide me with that work-life balance, as well as fulfillment professionally, as I grew older. But so it made the switch and took me a little longer. It took me 5 years in total. But, I had to make the switch then and continue with and start those prerequisites.
I got to say, you're the first person, I'm just going to say, I don't think you realize what you just said, but that's the elixir of like this podcast is you had insight into not necessarily I want to be a nurse or want to work in a hospital, but the lifestyle you wanted. And that's it right there. Like, that's the thing that I'll be honest, when I was your age or that age, now that I'm 52, like I didn't realize about 12, 15 years ago, more like 20, when Michelle and I started trying to have a family. I didn't realize when I was younger how important it was for me to be home all the time. I had a dad who was a pilot who was gone a lot, which was actually good because he was a tough dad. But I didn't realize, like, I don't want to miss birthdays. I don't want to miss holidays. I want to, I took my son to school today. I don't want to miss out on anything. Like, I don't want to be gone. There's times where I have to go away for a week or something. And I love to travel, but I hate being away from family. So the fact that you were aware of kind of the lifestyle that you wanted, that's kind of what I want young people to think about. And I don't think they do think like that. And I think it's really good that you did that, because you've carved out a life that aligns with your values and, And I think that's great. So I want to stay on this. So a little bit ago, you were talking about flexibility. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because like my assumption about being a nurse is not, it doesn't feel flexible to me. It feels like, let's just say you want to run home at noon and work out or something. Like talk to me about the real world of flexibility as a nurse, because like you're on, right? You're on for 8 hours or whatever. And you can't like go hang out and go go chill out at the beach or something like, but I guess you have flexibility in the sense that you can create your schedule, but when you're on, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're on, you're either an 8 or a 12-hour shift. Yeah. There's no running home for lunch, or there's no, stopping to, peel out to, go take your kid somewhere. But when I say there's, flexibility, you can work, 24 hours a week, and you can do that in 2 days. There were many years where I worked 16 hours a week, and I worked Sunday evenings and Monday evenings only. And that was from 3 to 11. The beauty of that was my husband was always home on Sundays, and on Mondays, I only needed a babysitter for 3 hours. And, until my husband came home. So there was, then there was times where, I worked, 3 days, it was really easy to change my shifts, my hours over the years. Now with, 4 college age kids and, kids in, expensive schools, I have a job where, I'm working more. But again, my hours are fantastic. I'm able to work 32 hours a week in 3 days. So my Friday starts at 1:30 on a Wednesday afternoon, and I'm off till Monday. So I really have a fantastic schedule now. I'm thankful that there's more partnership, with in raising children, now with your partners or your partner, excuse me, but a lot still falls on mom, and to be truthful, and working full time as a woman, as a mother, juggling carpools, kids, snacks, meals, so many things. It's too much, it's really a lot. And so working as a nurse has just, I can't, being a mom, and I can't imagine a better career. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I know how hard you work. I know how hard my wife works, and I get it. So that's an interesting way to think about flexibility, is like it's structured flexibility. Like,
yeah,
it's like as a pilot or a firefighter, when you're on, and when you're off, you're off.
That's right.
Yeah, no, okay.
And the other really great thing about it, you're right, you're off. You clock in, you clock out. I don't have any emails that I need to think about, or I don't have a presentation that I need to give the next day, or I don't need to prepare for something else. I do clock in and I clock out, and I start again fresh the next day. So there's a lot of benefit to that, for sure, instead of having something hanging over your head or the next deadline. So that's another really important thing to consider too, with the whole work-life balance thing.
So if someone's getting into being a nurse and they just don't like waking up early, or can they schedule, even in the beginning as a new person, can they like schedule 10 to 6, or are they like pilots? Sometimes it's seniority, where you have to like be around in order to get the sweet, flights and the hours. Are you able to get that, or do you have to work your way up the ladder?
You do kind of work your way. When you first start, the shifts, the schedule you're given is what's available. So whether that's day shift, evening shift, night shift, it is variable. If you're finding that you're needing something that, different for you, you can easily switch departments, do something different if the schedule is going to work better for you.
Cool. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So we have time, but I want to make sure we don't miss out on some things I always ask my guests. So you talked about some of the things you love. Is there anything else that, like, oh my God, I didn't know I'd love this so much? Like, we think we know what we're getting ourselves into, something very similar to a relationship. And then sometimes things change. And like, is there something that would be valuable to share? And I want to also get into like the negative, like not every job is perfect and not everyone loves their job. So, is there something about your job you're like, man, not a fan of this, just, especially like if you're talking to your daughter and you want her to be crystal clear on her decision and be aware of the reality of the job. So a couple maybe things that you love that you haven't mentioned, or even one, and then maybe one or two things about the job that you would be not caution people on, but just you would want them to be aware of.
Sure. I mean, I think that, I connect with people, and I think that, in a hospital setting, people are vulnerable and they need help and they need someone to come alongside of them. And, like I said, there are times that you walk away saying, there's no way I can possibly describe to someone that human connection that I met today. You make a difference. You make a huge difference, and it's every day. It's extremely rewarding. It can be really hard. It can be, depending on your situations. I mean, you could be working in labor and delivery, and something really hard can happen. With a cesarean. That's a whole nother part of it, right? It can be really hard. You can be working in, a pediatric oncology unit, and that's brutal. That's tough. But we need skilled, excellent nurses to be that person for that kiddo, and to be that bridge for the parents and that support. I mean, we all need it. We're all human. We all need help. We need great providers. But nothing's perfect, whether, working in, the corporate life or, healthcare in a hospital setting as a, nurse educator, whatever it is, nothing is perfect. Nothing's ideal. It's how we look at it. Right. But I think, I find that I really do like what I do. And it also affords me the opportunity and the work-life balance to pursue things that also bring me joy. And so I think that's really important. I'm not going to find all of my fulfillment in my work, all of my fulfillment in my family. I need, it's just important to recognize that, there needs to be that balance.
So not specific to you, but like, just is compensation hourly? Do you get a salary?
Yeah.
Is there upside? Like, let's just say someone's motivated by money. I am. I like
Sure.
money. Do you have the opportunity to make more money if you'd like?
For sure.
Okay.
So working as a nurse, as a nurse within the hospital, most nurses are hourly. If you have a management role, it's definitely a salary position. There are bonuses that are offered in a management position. But nurses typically within a hospital, a registered nurse within a hospital will work an hourly wage. There are so many opportunities for extra shifts, so many opportunities. There's all kinds of incentives, bonus pay, that, nurses receive for picking up extra shifts. For my daughter, when she graduates, I would probably encourage her to, instead of taking a full-time position, a 1.0 position, I probably would encourage her to take a 0.8 position. Because there's always extra hours to be had, and, with great incentives even $25 more an hour, which is, can be significant. Hospitals do all kinds of different things in terms of bonus programs.
So just so I understand, that's really interesting. 1.0, does that mean like you're maxed out at how many hours
40.
you can? 40. Okay. So then if you do that and you want to do overtime, are you able to, or do they say, no, you only can work so many hours?
They don't want to. Yes, you can work above 40 hours a week. They don't, ideally they would rather not pay overtime, but yes, you easily work more than 40 hours a week.
Okay. Yeah. When you're talking a little bit about, you didn't say negative, but like, I don't know, like some of the things you see, like,
Mhm.
I don't know how you leave them. Like, I remember going back to psychology school to get my doctorate, and I wanted to work with young kids. And I just like, we went through case studies, and I remember like, if I was working with a young boy who's maybe getting abused by his dad or beat up, I'd go knock on the dad's door, and I probably would get my license revoked. But like, I don't know how, so I recognize I didn't have the personality to do that job. Like, how do you, when you see something that's tragic, and we don't have to get specific, but how do you leave that behind?
It can be hard, but I think that organizations do a great job having debriefing sessions, and we debrief when there's a code or a tragic situation that happens. We all gather and we meet and we talk about it, and there's great forums within the hospital to kind of I guess debrief is the right word, but to just kind of help resolve
Good.
things. Yeah. But there are, mistakes happen as well. I mean, you think in the business world and you mess up on some sort of a presentation or a report or something. I mean, unfortunately, there's errors, human errors also in the medical field. And if something like that was to happen to you, I mean, the guilt that you feel is real. But there's more and more, I mean, over the years, there's so many more safety measures in place that making mistakes or medication errors or things like that is very hard anymore to make a mistake because there's so many safeguards in place. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got it. No, it's good. So I've got a couple more questions, but before I get to those, I have kind of a, don't be nervous. It's a political question. So I'm going to articulate it in a safe way so you don't feel pressure. I would think that, like, what happens when you have an opinion or a belief system that doesn't align with medical industry or, CDC or whatever, right? So let's just, there's a lot of examples I can give you, recently, but what happens, I don't want to get specific on a,
Sure.
vaccine or whatever, thing like that. But what happens when you have a belief system that contradicts what the message is or what the, what they're telling you to do? I guess the question becomes, because like people, when they get into careers, they also need to recognize, are they total individuals with, freedom? And like, if you're in apparel, do you want to get crazy with designs, or do you have to play it safe if you're with a big brand? What if can you be an individual with your own opinions, or do you have to fall in line in your world?
Well, probably a little bit of both. So, you have to, well, I guess, in terms of my beliefs, I don't have to fall in line.
Right.
In terms of standard of care, I have to fall in line. In terms of best practice, in terms of hospital policy, I have to fall in line. And that also, with some things that somebody might believe, personally or politically, that has an impact too. Like you mentioned immunizations. Our hospital respects people who have varying feelings on that. But by making certain choices, there's other protocol that you need to abide by, which seems fair and respectful. I have, in my career, come across, a time or two where I was not comfortable caring for a particular patient, under certain circumstances. And I just let my superior know that, this isn't going to work for me. So, and the assignment was changed. So I think that, we, while we are fair and equitable with everyone, We also need to take care of ourselves and respect ourselves, and not compromise yourself. And so there's a way to respectfully communicate with your boss to let them know what you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could be in any industry, even like some of my people in big tech. You have to bend the knee sometimes and fall in line. And I think it's important to be aware of the environment or the career you're going into, and take inventory of like who you are. I mean, are you that person that always, like, I don't think I would have been good in the military just because I questioned everything. Mm-hmm. And some of my coaches playing sports, I know I drove them crazy because I was always curious, like why they wanted to call a certain play or whatever. So I was just really curious in the world of hospitals and medical care and being a nurse, if there is flexibility to have your own voice. And sounds like there is. And I think it's really good that if you communicate with your boss or your peers, it might, help out a lot. Okay. So a couple questions. If you were to do it again, like this is a question I throw out. I have a feeling I know the answer to this, but would you do it exactly the same way, knowing what you know now, or would you maybe have changed it up?
Considering the fact that I had 4 children, 5 and under, you bet I would have done the same thing over again. I think that my choice in nursing really had a lot to do with my family choices, my hopes for my personal family. So considering the way our family has turned out the way it is, I am so glad that I had the career that I have had. It's also really impacted me as an individual for the reasons that I've described, before. So yes, I would absolutely do it over again. How would I do it differently? Again, based on my family situation, I don't think I would have done it any differently. Maybe if if my situation was different, maybe my kids were spread out a little bit more, or maybe I had 2 children instead of 4 children, or 1 child, or, maybe things would have been different. And maybe I would have changed organizations. Maybe I would have gone to, receive my master's in something. But I'm so blessed to have so many different aspects of my life that bring me joy. Like I said, there's just a lot of different parts of me. So This seems to, fit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And knowing your husband, I also know it's important to like have buy-in from your partner.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And I know like you are doing a lot, but when you're gone, mm-hmm. he's on, right? Mm-hmm. And with 4 kids, mm-hmm. That's a lot. And mm-hmm. I know that you do a lot too when you come home. So it's not like he's got the harder job. I'm not saying that at all, but I think it's really also important to recognize if you're going into a career, be aware of the what that means for your partner. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. the last question is, let's just say God came down and said, Joleen, you can't be a nurse. You can't be anything having to do with what you do. Like you just can't. Is there a dream job? And I ask this question because I think it's interesting. I'm interested personally. Maybe I'm selfish for asking this, but I also think it's good because sometimes people will look at you and they'll say, she's just a nurse through and through. But like, I think being a career doesn't mean you don't have to identify. That's not who you are. That's what you do. Maybe it is who you are, but is there something out there like that you dream about or that you joke about that like, God, if I could do this, I would love to do this?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting question because, as our kids, we have, one left at home and is graduating shortly and heading off to college. And so, I'm at a place in my life where I start to think, what's next? Do I want to do something different? I'm honestly, to be truthful, I don't know. So that's where I'm at, just trying to figure that out right now. I think real estate would be super fun, but I don't think it would offer me the flexibility that I have that I really enjoy. I love planning things and events and those type of things. So I think, as a nurse, you have to be somebody that, anticipates the need and, prioritizes and is a really good planner. And that spills over into other areas of life too. And so you can be a great organizer and, somebody who anticipates the need and be a fabulous corporate event planner or something like that. So you have skills as a nurse that can translate into a lot of other professions easily. But what my next step is, I'm not 100% sure yet.
So I'm not going to quite let you off the hook that easy. So I'll give you an example. Like for me, I would love to write music for movies. Like I really get affected and impacted by music and like composers, like the background music of movies. And I've always been infatuated with certain, they're non-lyrical, right? It's just the music. And so like, I think that would be a dream job for me. And and when I was younger, I wanted to be a football player, quarterback, and in the off season be a leader of a rock band. So is there anything like is there dancing, acting, artists? Is there anything that's totally different from where you've been? And that's okay if not. I'm just curious.
I'm inspired by your dreams.
All right, you think about it, and next time
next time we'll get back to you.
Next time we're together, by the way, and thank God you didn't have two kids, because Carly is one of our favorites, and you have amazing children. So before I end this, is there anything on the tip of your tongue that you felt like maybe I didn't ask you, or that you're like, God, I want people to know this, or do you feel pretty complete?
No, I just would encourage you, again, young adults especially, really think about all the things that you hope for, in your future. Considering your family, considering, what brings you joy, your interests, and then try to find a career that, will help to encompass or allow you to enjoy all those things. As a nurse, we always need great healthcare providers. And, there's some that are very average, and there's some that just really make such a huge difference in the lives of others. And, you can be so good. So, I just would encourage, it's been a fantastic profession, especially while I've raised my family. But there are also so many different things you can do with it. So, also for those that are new to the profession, if you're discouraged, that's okay. There are where you're starting is a stepping stone, and you can easily pivot and do so many different things. And then I guess the last thing too, I would just reiterate again that if you're in school and you're pursuing that career as a nurse, you get a job in the hospital, before you graduate. So that's going to give you that foot in the door for sure.
Yeah, that's good advice. I did think of one more thing. 30 years ago versus now, like, are you starting to see more of a diversity in terms of like more male nurses versus female? Like, I don't know if the statistics were, it was 80, 90%. I mean, and the reason I bring this up is because I want people, every kind of person in the world to realize that this is an opportunity for anybody, right? I mean,
Yeah, for sure. We're seeing a lot more men in the nursing profession, and certainly in specific areas, which is I find interesting, specifically in intensive care or the ER or in the intensive care, the ER and the OR, especially. So I find that interesting. That would be kind of an interesting study. But somebody that works full time 3 days a week, 36 hours a week, and then is an avid soccer player. One of our male nurses, in the OR, and but just has the opportunity to have, a great income, and then be able to pursue these other things that he just loves, so but yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Diversity.
Joleen, you were awesome. You threw a lot at me. I mean, the cool thing about these interviews is I'm always curious, but I also think it's valuable to people. But I learned a lot. Like, I mean, you think you know something about a career, but there's so much underneath that sometimes you don't know. So I'm going to end this here. I just wanted to say thank you so much. And I know I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dirk. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.